Yo, it's Tug from We Make Best, back again with some more Kano content. Been a while since I've done one of these, so I'm super excited to get through this. But just to explain why I wanted to make this video, for those who don't know, I've actually been doing Kano coaching for all our Patreons over the past couple weeks. And I've actually had this question come up a lot from almost everyone that I've coached. And that was, how do I play a post-combo game? And even though I explained the answer to them in the coaching sessions, I feel like it would be a lot better if I just show it in a gameplay video and just break it down rather than only explaining it. And so here we are, let's get into it. So right off the bat, we're versing a Rhinar with the standard AB3. I believe they won the dice roll and chose to go first, so I'm just hoping they don't ever turn 0 Blood Rush. Instead, they start off their turn by rolling scabs. I pray to Allah that they roll a 1. Instead, they just roll a 3, so they only get 1 action point, so that's fine too. They then proceed to pitch 3 to attack with Alpha Rampage for 9 while intimidating 2 cards. So I don't want a Kano in response here, since taking 9 on turn 0 is never worth it. So instead we just let the intimidates resolve and we get left with 2 cards. Unluckily, we get the 2 cards that I didn't want to block with, but all goods. We'll block for 5, take 4 down to 29, then they just Arsenal and pass it over to us. So over to us, first real turn of the game. We have a really awkward hand, 2 blues, an E-pot and a red reverb. My first thought process is I want to strip the Rhinar's hand at least a little bit to take the tempo early, while also being able to set up this E-pot and maybe Arsenaling the red reverb. So with that in mind, we want a Kano here and just hope for a red. Instead we hit a zap, unlucky. Before we fire that off, we're going to use the other blue in our hand to Kano again, hoping for something like a flare or a Tome of the Aetherwind, something like that, but we whiff even harder, hitting a blue snapback. So really bad for us, but we just fire off the zap first, and then surprisingly they AB won it using a red pack hunt. So we're super happy to see this, that we actually got to strip their hand even though we have a weak turn. And it also tells me that maybe they have a little bit of an awkward hand with less blues and stuff in there. So happy to follow the plan, just play out the E-pot, Arsenal the reverb, and then pass it over. So over to them, first thing I notice is just how good our hand is with the reverb in our arsenal. So really hoping that we don't have to block anything this turn. But the opponent leads off with a red barraging beatdown, which intimidates one of our blues, and then they follow that out with a swing big for 12. So even though I didn't want to block anything this turn, and they're not forcing me to block, it's just too much value to double block the swing big and then cancel out the beatdown effect, making my 5 block actually turn into 9 block if I do double block it. So do just that, block with the tome in the blue, take 3, and then they pass it back to us. So over to us, we have a weirdly intricate turn here. So I have the option to play the reverb for 4 and then play lessons for 3. This line has a couple of downsides, such as if they don't AB the reverb and use 1 blue to completely AB out the lesson, I'll be left with no arsenal and no guaranteed combo piece for next turn. And the loss of an arsenal means I'm going to lose a lot of tempo. Also, because I won't have an arsenal, this means they won't have to feel threatened by a combo turn, meaning they're able to just drop their entire hand to present the most damage possible. And then the other line is just reverb for 4 and then arsenal this lesson. I don't really like that because it's not forcing them to AB the reverb. So if they just take 4 and then maybe they have a Blood Rush Bellows turn with 5 cards, could be in big trouble. So with all that in mind, I choose to just shoot the lessons for 4, pitching the blue in hand. This demands a blue from the Rhino, otherwise I get to find a combo piece. And then I'll still have an arsenal along with a known wildfire in my hand, meaning that the opponent has to respect combo, even though I don't have it since it's a reverb and arsenal. There's also an additional benefit of this, in which it leaves the reverb in my arsenal for my next turn, which means they're probably not going to be able to spew out 5 cards at me next turn in fear of a combo. And then instead I just get to play a reverb turn, playing out multiple arcane spells on my next turn to strip their hand, arsenal the wildfire, and potentially kill them in their next turn. So that was a lot of explaining just to play a lessons, so let's carry on. We shoot the lessons for 4. Very weird, they only AB 1 here, so I'm guessing they have no blues in hand, or they need the blue for their hand to function. So happy with that. We deal 3, strip a card, and get a combo piece. Very happy with that turn for us, and then we just pass it over. Their turn again, they start by rolling scabs once again. Alhamdulillah, pray that they roll a 1. Again, they roll a 3, so only 1 action point, not bad. Then they actually tap out the player Command and Conquer. So pretty awkward for us. Was not expecting them to just tap out here. They get away with it since we have a reverb in the arsenal, and we definitely can't kill through AB1 off the tunic for a wildfire reverb combo. But something else to note is, since they're confident in doing this with the tunic up, I have suspicion that it might be Oasis in the arsenal, since it's been sitting there since turn 0. But all good, we'll use the blues to block out the CNC, and then they pass it to us. Over on our turn, I'm actually going to use the Tunic here to Crucible. I use the Tunic since not only do I have an E-Pot out to make up for the lost resource of it, but I also expect the game to go on for much longer than 3 more turns when checking out both of our life totals. Tunic for the Crucible, then we pitch the Snapback to reverb for 4. We actually get a blue out of them, which is huge. So we get the chip them for 4, strip their hand, and then Arsenal a Wildfire, ship it over. Over to them. Again, they roll scabs. Alhamdulillah, please roll a 1. Damn it, they roll a 4. So 2 action points this time. Ouch. They lead off with a Pack Hunt, intimidating one of our cards. Can't combo in response with their full grip, so all goods. Let the Intimidate resolve, and we're also just going to take 6 here since we have plenty of health to play with, down to 17. They then follow up with their Arsenal card, that being a Skullcrack. So okay, it wasn't an Oasis, good to know. But now that we have full information, let's figure out our turn now. So first thing I notice is they don't have an Arsenal now. So if we strip their hand next turn, gonna make their offense a lot worse. Our hand is red flare, lessons, and 2 blues. I'm not gonna be able to play both the lessons and the flare next turn, so I choose to block using the flare just to gain 3 health, and then we're probably just gonna be looking for a lessons into a quickening turn on our next turn. So we do just that, take 3 down to 14, and they pass it to us. So it's our turn now. Follow the plan of Crucible lessons. They respond to the Crucible with Sigil of Solace. I believe this is a misplay from them. They should hold on to that card to make me have to respect the blue in hand, but all goods. They gain 3 up to 39, and then we lessons for 4, which they quickly AB3 with a blue, so they take 1 down to 38, but we've completely stripped their hand now. I'm guessing they're just going to Arsenal pass with 2 cards in hand out of fear of our combo. So with this in mind, I changed my plan of grabbing quickening to instead grab the last lessons in my deck to shoot them again for 3. This either demands another blue out of them, otherwise I'll grab the other combo piece I need to kill them in their next turn, but I have a good feeling here that they probably don't have a second blue in hand, as Rhinos tend to run a little bit less than your normal deck. So boom, fire off the lessons. They actually take 3 down to 35, and we get to grab another combo piece. So I have the choice here between Blazing Aether and Red Flare. I choose to grab the Red Flare here. Now this is the less damage combo than a Blazing combo, but I'm expecting them to just pass on their turn in fear of our combo. And then if we go back to our turn, I'd much rather have a Red Flare in our hand than having a Blazing. So we do just that, put the Flare to the top and pass it over, drawing up the Flare and 3 blues. So over to them, expecting an Arsenal pass, but instead they indeed tap out for CNC. So all good. I'll respond by activating Kano. Let's see what we hit and see if we can kill him. We hit a Chain Lightning. So with that, let's do our combo math. So assuming we hit a blue off the rags, we have a Wildfire for 6, Flare for 10, and then a Chain Lightning for 19, all up being 35. But then we have to add in the AB1 off of their Tunic, which will turn our combo into Wildfire for 5, Flare for 9, and then Chain Lightning for 17, which is only 31 damage, which will put him to 4 while we take 6 down to 8. I'm pretty comfortable to play a post combo game at those life totals, but there's actually a little bit of risk here since we need the rags to hit a blue. Now when considering if it will hit a blue or not, we have to take into mind that we had 3 blues in hand and then banished a yellow to Kano. So under the flare that we knew about, there was 3 blues and a yellow. So without taking into account the cards in our graveyard, the probability of the top card being a blue for rags is something like 8%. We can figure this math out by both using the gambler's fallacy along with just the hand draw probabilities off of FABberry. If you guys don't know what the gambler's fallacy is, I just did a huge write-up on our Patreon explaining how we can implement that into our Kano games. Otherwise, I just recommend Googling it and studying up on it because it's honestly a game changer on how you can play Kano when you know this stuff. But yeah, back to the combo. With all that in mind, with an 8% chance to hit a blue off the top with rags, we have to expect a red instead. So now we got to do the math that we hit a red off the rags and the AB1, which would be Wildfire hits for 4, Flare hits for 7, and then Chain Lightning hits for 14, which is only 27 damage. Now this is the most likely amount of damage that our combo is going to be able to present this turn, so we have to ask ourselves, are we happy with both players going down to 8 health, but in turn I lose my Striders, Ragamuffin Hat, E-Pot, and Tempo, since our next turn is just going to be pass and draw up? And to be honest, I'm not extremely excited about this line, as I can still just choose the double block with the blues, use the E-Pot to Crucible the Flare for 4 in my next turn, while keeping the Wildfire in Arsenal, and then either I'm putting them down to 31 or stripping cards from their 4 card hand, but I ultimately decided to just send the combo and play a post combo game, just for the practice and get a nice video on how to play a post combo game, which we ended up getting, so perfect. So how we do the combo is we activate Crucible, 2 floating, and then we activate Kano, respond to that with Ragamuffin's Hat. We draw a Sonic Boom off of the rags. As predicted, it's not a blue, but at least it's not not a red this time, so happy with this. I do check if we can do a Sonic Boom combo instead, but we're just short on resources to be able to afford it all. So follow with the original plan, put the flare on top with the rags, and then let the Kano resolve. So since it was a yellow off the rags, we actually get to meta the Wildfire now, which is massive. So Wildfire for 6, they AB1, take 5 down to 30. Then we Aether Flare for 3 plus 5 from the Wildfire, so 8, putting them at 22. And lastly, we get the Chain Lightning for 3 plus 5 from the Wildfire and plus 8 from the Flare. So all up 16, putting them down to 6. We also take 6 down to 8, but technically we're at 9 since we still have our Tunic block. Keep that in mind. So not bad, happy with this. So now before we go into this post combo game, let's quickly break down a couple things that you want to keep in mind. Number one, after the combo turn, we have to take a turn off. This is because if we just keep Kanoing blindly and we whiff, we run the risk of giving them a huge chance to be able to present lethal, and we've got no cards left in hand. And even if we still have cards left in hand to block with, this puts us so behind in tempo that the games are near unwinnable at that point. So yeah, number one, take a turn off to maintain tempo. Number two, plays off with the tempo. So with the tempo, we still want to play cards in our own turn like normal while trying to strip their hand. And then if we're able to strip 2 to 3 cards out of their hand, then we can look for the finish in their turn. Number three, look to Arsenal snapbacks, as they can be used at instant speed from the Arsenal without Striders. And as you can see, I got really lucky here by drawing 2 of them. Number four, how many 3 damage or more cards do we have left in the deck? This is important as these cards paired with Crucible will allow us to chip over the AB3 while stripping cards and potentially finishing them off in the ending turns of the game. And lastly, life totals. The reason I was happy to play a post combo game is because we're on 8, and at 8 it's a lot harder for Rhinos to present that much damage without overextending and dying in response. So obviously against other heroes like Dash or something like that, we want to be a lot higher life than 8 since it's easier for them to present that much damage safely. So hopefully all that makes sense. Let's get into the post combo game now. So it's their turn, they lead off with a blue barraging beatdown. Like I said before, we need to take a turn off, so just let it resolve. It intimidates a snapback, lucky for us, and then they attack with a swing big for 10. So we have 2 options here, double block with the blues, take 2 down to 6, but then our turn is just Tunic snapback for 3. Not too fond of this turn because honestly they could just take 3 down to 3 and then be able to present a 5 card hand with multiple attacks and intimidates while keeping cards in their hand for their turn. So instead I just choose to use my life as a resource here by only blocking for 3, going down to 1. Then they just pass it over, and surprisingly they don't Arsenal here. So big tell from the opponent that they have at least 1 blue in hand right now, but on the upside for us, they're also losing an intellect, so I'm not too sure who's winning here. But over to us, now I'm able to pump my snapback using the Crucible with the blue I kept, and this leaves me open to chunking them hard with a double snap if they show that they don't have any blues. So like planned, shoot the snapback for 4, they AB3, take 1 down to 5. Good for us, let's just Arsenal the snapback since we have the Tunic to use it at any time we want, pass it over to them. So over to them, they don't want to overextend, so all they want to do is attack with claws for 3, no goal again, and claws also can't be pummeled, so very happy to just block 3 here and take another turn, especially since we have a Wildfire in hand allowing us to present 5 arcane damage over the top of their AB3. So we do just that and then they pass it back. So over on our turn, I'll quickly Kano first in case we hit a flare or something like that. We hit a Blazing Aether, so not bad. We'll banish that, shoot the Wildfire for 5. They actually pitch a red to Oasis it, blocking 4 damage and taking 1. Now the red pitch made me think that they want to either save the blue in their hand for their own turn, or maybe they don't have a blue in hand. So with that in mind, I decided to shoot the snapback and force them to give me a blue or die to the Blazing. They end up having the blue to AB3, all good, so we take that from them, and then I shoot the Blazing for 1, chipping them down to 3, while they only have 2 cards in hand for their own turn. But downside is we have no Arsenal, so we're praying for a decent hand here. Over on their turn, we draw up a pretty brick hand with 2 blues and 2 Blazing Aethers. Really sad to see this. They end up just choosing the pass with 2 cards and Tunic up. If we Kano here and brick on a blue, we'll probably put the game in a very uncoverable spot tempo wise, so I choose to let them just pass and then go to mine. And once again, they don't Arsenal, so now I'm guessing they have 2 blues in hand, but again now they're just down intellect, so I think we're winning out now, but all good. Over to us, we have to activate Kano here and pray for a hit. They once again respond with Assiduous Solace, going back up to 6, which is pretty AIDS, but that's fine. We end up finding a Sonic Boom, big hit, so we get to shoot that with Crucible for 4, take taking a blue out of their hand and chipping for 1 damage. The boom actually hits a blue flare as well, which they quickly AB1 with the tunic, but now we get to also play out a blazing from our hand to chip them for another 1, putting them down to 4 and 2 cards in hand, and then we get to arsenal our other blazing and pass it to them. So once again, on their turn, they just have 2 cards in hand and they pass it over to us, not arsenaling, showing that they must have 2 blues in hand, but very happy to go to ours. So back to our turn, we're in a really good spot. We can blind Kano first here to see what we hit. We hit a quickening here, which is a massive hit, so we just shoot that using the tome in hand for 4 damage. This takes a blue from their hand and chips for 1. Then we follow up with a wildfire for 5, and they give us 2 yellows to AB3, take 2 down to 1, and then we pass it over. 1 card in hand, 1 life, and no tunic up, while we have 3 blues, 1 yellow in hand. This is our window to finish the game. So we Kano, finding a blue snapback. Let's crucible and shoot it for 2 to see what color card we're working with here. They show a yellow to AB2, but now they have nothing left. All goods. We Kano again, find a red Aether Flare, and then end the game. GG's. So all up, hopefully this video helps with your post combo games. Just remember that you only want to go into a post combo game if you're able to get them down somewhere around 5 to 8 health or less, and just make sure that we have enough health to take a turn off for their next turn with minimum blocks. And then you practically just want to keep playing like normal, playing on our own turn, just looking to strip and chip them until eventually they give us a window for us to Kano in their turn and look for the finish. Also, we want to keep in mind of how many yellows and reds we have left in the deck that we can chip over their AB, and then you're sweet. But that's it for the video. There's heaps of in-depth Kano content on our Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description, and I always do Kano coaching for all our Patreons if that interests you. Otherwise, there's plenty of free Kano content on our channel here. But hopefully this video was good, and I'm outies.